This is an 11 Alive special presentation, Voices for Equality, celebrating Black History Month.
To dream and to disrupt.
Somebody told a lie one day.
Black History Month, dreaming out loud.
We do not want our freedom gradually, but we want to be free now.
We will sit in, we will march, we will boycott.
And disrupting the status quo. From the movement then and now.
I don't want to wait till something happens and then say, oh, we need to change it.
From voting rights to the role of Black women.
And that's been a big challenge for us as Black women, to have people see us as both Blacks and women.
This is Black Atlanta's bold movement.
We desperately need that right now because we're responding and we're reacting, but nonviolence really takes you to a higher level of critical thinking and processing.
Empowering the next generation to carry the torch.
They are agents of change who are eager to learn and change lives.
Welcome to a special edition of Voices for Equality, Dream and Disrupt, Black Atlanta's bold movement. I'm your host, Naima Abdullahi. For the next hour, we'll take you on a journey through Atlanta's Black history then and now, covering some of the biggest challenges, along with the victories we celebrate, and what it will take to carry the torch in this generation. We begin with exploring how Atlanta became the cradle of the civil rights movement, often referred to as the Black Mecca. The city of Atlanta is deeply rooted in the success and the experience of Black Americans. Jennifer Bellamy explores how we got here and the work that remains.
On this corner of downtown Atlanta sits a treasure trove of knowledge. The Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history is home to story and tales of the mighty past of Black history in Atlanta.
This is a repository of not only the Black history of Atlanta and the Black history of Georgia, but Black history nationwide.
Dr. Maurice Hobson, a Georgia State professor, author, and Atlanta historian, has spent countless hours here studying the past and its impact on today. He met me there to talk about Atlanta's history and influence. She says it goes back to General Sherman's burning of Atlanta, with newly freed slaves establishing themselves here afterward. That, along with white missionaries, laid the groundwork for Atlanta to become an educational capital for Black people through several historically Black colleges and universities.
This becomes a place to where freedmen could come and get an education. And what education meant is that they could create their own contracts. They could operate in their best interest.
This led to the Sweet Auburn District, a Black business thoroughfare, which further advanced the progress of Blacks in Atlanta.
We have Black education, we have Black economics. The third aspect of that was the rise of Black political empowerment and electoral politics.
In the federal court case of King v. Chapman, with the ruling banning all white voting primaries in Georgia from blocking Black voters, opening the door for hundreds of thousands of Black voters to have more voting freedom.
And of course, they're concentrated here in Atlanta, Georgia. So when John Wesley Dobbs and Austin T. Walden found the Atlanta Negro Voters League, what it does is any politician or someone seeking office who is statewide, they have to come to Atlanta and court the Black vote.
More Blacks began to make gains, shaping and being elected to political offices, giving them another avenue to transform their lives and communities.
Sometimes I don't think people in Atlanta understand what we have here.
Dr. Bernice King, daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a civil rights leader herself, says Black people in Atlanta frequently worked with business leaders and other people of influence to make change. That legacy of work lives today with those historically Black institutions of higher education. Black businesses like the still existing Atlanta Life Insurance and Citizens Trust Bank, the faith community, and scores of Black entrepreneurs.
We have been a city that literally was too busy to hate and did not let anything like hatred and racism stand in the way of rising to an occasion.
Elizabeth Omalami, daughter of civil rights activist Hosea Williams and CEO of Hosea Helps, also points to that work at brokering deals.
People say Atlanta is the cradle of civil rights, and it's according to how you look at it, because you never had to have a march or anything violent or anything like that happen in Atlanta, because they had a system where they would negotiate, go in the back room, make the deal, and things would rather happen that way.
But she says there's still work to be done for those who have been left behind on a humanitarian level. A message for future changemakers, young and old.
Don't look for anybody else. You be that leader, and you can make a difference.
Atlanta has an incredible legacy of civil rights giants who devoted and often risked their lives fighting for justice and freedom. But with trailblazers like John Lewis, Hosea Williams, Joseph Lowery, and C.T. Vivian no longer with us, who is leading the charge today? Jonathan Martin sat down with 3 leaders aiming to carry the torch in Atlanta.
So what keeps me in the street, what keeps me focused, is we have not achieved justice.
You have to have that moment of, stop talking. What are you doing?
Representation is important, but it's about what you do when you get there.
3 voices with a common goal, continuing a movement Atlanta civil rights giants pioneered.
We're going to march. We're going to make sure that we are causing that good trouble that Congressman Lewis spoke about, but we've got to take it a step further and institute the policies that actually change people's lives.
Representative Nekima Williams succeeded the late John Lewis in Congress, and like him has pushed bills aimed at protecting voting rights.
When the right to vote is restricted, then you can restrict your right to everything else in this country.
Another key focus for her, economic equality.
I moved here from rural Alabama because Atlanta was the place where Black people could come and grow and prosper. And yet Atlanta still has one of the largest racial wealth gaps in the country. So I know that sitting on the House Financial Services Committee, I have work to do.
We know that we have problems with public housing. We know we have hospital closures. We know we have low income. We know we have a very terrible minimum wage. How do we create these differences? How do we change these circumstances? Whose job is it to hold accountable?
Activist and community organizer Scotty Smart has long been vocal about issues affecting Atlanta's Black community and stresses the importance of showing up to hold leaders accountable.
If you're not in these rooms, if you're not showing up to your city council meetings, if you're not showing up to your county commissioner meetings, then how do you know where these resources lie? How do you know what can be afforded to you if you aren't in the rooms or even in the conversation?
There's a need for the NAACP. It's been underscored by the rise in hate, by the rise in intolerance and racial aggression.
While Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd's cases re-energized activism, Gerald Griggs, who leads Georgia's NAACP conference, says it's important to remember the big picture.
A viral moment is just that, a viral moment. We are in a movement, and we have to focus and make sure that we achieve the goals of the movement.
Griggs points to some progress in areas like police accountability and says just like the movement of the 50s and 60s, today's fight is nuanced with different approaches. All 3 leaders agree for lasting change, there must be greater unity within.
Some people feel like they've arrived, and so they're not as clear on what the directive and the pathway forward is, but I do think we are unified for the working class and those that are still searching and dreaming and hoping for that reality that is supposed to be Atlanta.
You have a lot of individualism, you have a lot of people who are financially winning in their own space, but you don't have the sense of unity and togetherness that we had of previous generations.
Atlanta is indeed moving in the right direction, and I see a bright future of us really living that beloved community that Congressman Lewis and Dr. King spoke about.
Coming up, we take you inside a classroom devoted to creating the future leaders of tomorrow. See firsthand how this educator's mission is empowering the next generation.
Voices for Equality, Black History Month, part of 11 Alive's year-round Voices for Equality series, brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Georgia Power. Make history.
Welcome back to 11 Alive for our special report, Dream and Disrupt, Black Atlanta's Bold Movement. As part of Black History Month, we're bringing you stories that ignite the right cultural conversations in our community as we reflect on our city's rich history and where we go from here. Our next story shines a light on an Atlanta teacher shaping future leaders and innovators. She instills in her students a belief that they can change the world. 11 Alive's Ron Jones shows us how she's transforming young lives at Best Academy and inspiring hope for this generation of potential history makers.
So the thing of it is, you have to have those things that we talked about important. Cole, what do we say some of those key vocabulary words were?
Participation is not an option.
Yes, marine life. So what do you see here? What do they say? There are what? How many trillion?
It's expected in Master Teacher Raquanda Epps Primus's classroom every day.
Take notes on what's going on. Let's go.
These young men at Best Academy in Northwest Atlanta are being held accountable.
I'll be back. Cole, y'all good?
Epps Primus calls them potential doctors, business owners, and
then probably an engineer.
History makers in the making.
Develop solutions and then design. Yes, everybody pop off. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
It's more so a ministry. It's like I was born to just pour into others.
I love it. Y'all clap up. Yes.
And what better place to pour into men, African American men who are here at Best Academy, who are eager to learn and change lives.
There is no food around here that is reliable to people who need healthy nourishment. There's fast food. And that can cause a lot of obesity.
What is it that you're creating for our community for this food desert?
They're thinking outside the four walls of this classroom, finding solutions for their community, learning anything is possible.
It starts with the mindset.
As an MD or engineer, what would you use, subject, to save a life?
So if you pour into them and let them know that self-efficacy, I can do anything that I put my mind to, my heart, they are going to change the world.
You can't just fly a drone, and I love it.
It's not flying, it's AI.
Okay, excuse me, tell me more.
They have empathy. They are excited about being able to be creative, innovative, and having fun at the same time.
So what would be the first step, though? What did you do with your product, with your prototype?
So when you combine all of that together...
The idea, that's what I want y'all to talk about, so you can share that with him, okay?
That is change.
Well, something has to change. According to the nonprofit Sentencing Project, as of 2021, Black youth were almost 5 times as likely to be detained or committed in juvenile facilities as their white peers. This disparity has hardly changed in the last decade.
One moment, baby, I'm coming. What'd you say?
But there's hope. Teachers like Miss Epps Primus is showing these young men what change looks like.
She shows us what to do, she respects us, and she helps us with the work.
But this is providing them with respiratory or oxygen. Okay.
She's one of the best teachers I've ever had because she really focuses on me.
And she's giving us important information for the long run.
Introduce yourself, and we're going to listen to what they have to say. Pay attention.
She reminds me of my mom.
Very good. Thank you, Ethan, for sharing. Excellent.
That makes me feel great. I mean, that's a warm, fuzzy spot in my heart, because to know that they feel safe in a space to where they can learn and they know that they're loved, it gives me joy.
It makes me feel like I made a really good choice.
Tim Jones, the principal at Best Academy, says she's molding these future history makers one life lesson at a time.
I'm so proud of what she inspires in our young men every day.
Oh, let me read it. It says, use your imagination. What steps did this person take to develop his own company?
And she'll hold them accountable long after they leave this classroom.
I make sure I succeed and I do my best in life.
They are agents of change, and that's what I'm about, changing lives.
Right after the break, tackling economic inequality. What does it take to bridge the racial wealth gap, and how can we invest in the power of the Black dollar? Coming up. As we take a look at the contributions of the past and look ahead to the future, Black history is happening right now. You can see it all around us through conversations about Black wealth and about the power of the Black dollar. Aisha Howard introduces us to a woman living her life's purpose by making sure Black business owners not only grind together, but also shine together as a community. Let's take you to the village.
This is the village. All things Black excellence.
It's not the concrete jungle, but in Atlanta inside Ponce City Market, this is where Black entrepreneurial dreams are made of. Dr. Lakeisha Hallman, or Dr. Key, birthed the Village Market Retail Shop as part of her bigger vision, building Black wealth through the power of community.
I wanted to make sure that I was positioning Black brands to be in front of buying customers from all over the world. Many of these brands, what's so special is that they're extremely gifted, and this is their first time in retail.
And then how many entrepreneurs do you have in the store right now?
We have over 30 brands in the store.
Collectively, this diverse group of business owners known as the Villagers have earned $8.3 million in direct sales as a result of direct action. I think this is one of the most powerful green grass walls I've seen in Atlanta.
So
support is a verb.
This is how we've been able to generate that $8.3 million in direct sales. Support is a verb is a charge, a challenge to the community to put action behind the things that you say you love. If we love local businesses, the verb is to buy from local businesses.
Gilletta Covard's fitness and heated apparel line, Just J Fitness, is booming after only being a part of the Village for 3 months.
So they have been instrumental in increasing my brand awareness and then just attracting so many different customers from across the globe. I've only been in here 3 months, but month to month, in fourth quarter, my sales have drastically improved.
Dr. Key acknowledges not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur, but it is a substantial pathway for Black Americans to achieve economic equality and to tackle the racial wealth gap, even in the presence of opposition.
Systemic racism exists in ways that's glaring, and then it doesn't always feel as potent either. When you only have less than 1% of Black people still getting funding, that's systemic.
Despite that jarring statistic, Black buying power is, well, powerful. According to the Selig Center for Economic Growth at UGA, Black buying power is expected to hit $1.8 trillion in 2024. Dr. Key wants to show the Black community a piece of that pie belongs to them and generational wealth can be attained together.
Dreams are made more possible if you're around enough representation that looks like you. So I had to bring the right people to the table. So entrepreneurs and some of the finest people in Atlanta, I needed them to go hard after their dreams. I needed them to also understand that they didn't have to do it by themselves.
What I found to be so special is the support of the other entrepreneurs. Because you're like, I'm not at this alone. You are, but you aren't. We're dealing with the same things.
And if creating wealth through entrepreneurship is your dream, Dr. Key says the Village has your back.
I am forever optimistic, and I'm not waiting for anyone to save us.
Now that we explored the Black wealth topic, coming up, we'll dive into the influence of Black creativity and innovation. We'll look at how it impacts Atlanta's success in the media and music industry. From Atlanta's booming entertainment industry to the city's reputation as the music capital of the South, Atlanta is known for its creative energy. But that can't be mentioned without acknowledging the influence and the impact of Black creativity. Here's my report on why that matters and how that leads to innovations that can not only shape the culture, but also move the needle.
Meet 4 Black creatives in 4 different lanes of creativity. Brian Michael Cox, Grammy Award-winning producer and songwriter at the top of his game and still giving out free game for the next generation of hit makers.
Push the boundaries, learn everything. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to learn everything.
Ray Daniels, music executive veteran and culture referee, facilitating necessary conversations on his platform.
Black people start all the trends. All the trends are started by Black people.
Marina Sky, award-winning creative director and designer.
Black is bold. We have historically had to be bold just throughout, and I think that there is a spirit in all of us that just continues on.
And Keith Dorsey, brand manager and founder of Collab Studio ATL, helping content creators generate revenue online.
We did everything on our own. We're really writing history.
What all 4 have in common is promoting Black creativity unapologetically.
I really just think it's the driving force in general. I think that Atlanta does not get enough credit for being such a powerhouse in the driving force of creativity in general. And I think that we're finally in a space where people are paying attention.
Marina Sky graduated from Clark Atlanta University and worked on the design layout of the Trap Music Museum and has worked with artists like 21 Savage, and the list goes on.
I am the evolution of my mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother and all of these beautiful women and people in general that are behind me, pushing me forward to succeed.
Brian Michael Cox says the magic is woven within our soul.
Describe Black creativity.
Black creativity to me is something that's deeply rooted in where we come from. I feel like you can trace our creativity all the way back to the continent, you know what I mean?
His catalog of hit records is a result of a feeling he believed in, something he hopes others don't lose sight of.
For you, when did that light bulb go off that this is what you wanted to do?
That light bulb went off very early. As a little kid, you know what I mean? I always knew that I wanted to do something creative.
He says part of the craft process is to remain humble, but never forget who you are.
I can only attribute that to God. If somebody say a higher power or whatever, but for me it's God, right? When you are literally born to do something, you know what I mean? I don't know nothing else but this.
Ray Daniels says the Black excellence in this city is an inspiration.
Because music told our stories. When James Brown said, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud," white audience sung it, but black people knew it was for us. And seeing white people call this black man Mr. Brown and his name on the back of a jet, that makes me think I can have it.
He says no matter the specific lane of Black creativity, whether it's music, media, or the arts, creativity can be a liberation for a generation that needs it.
I love the freedom we have here to be black and powerful and not have to code switch and talk another way for another race so they can accept us. We don't have to do that here.
Do we know how powerful we are, though?
No, and I think that that's my goal. That's why I support you, because, you know, representation is necessary.
Keith Dorsey says the playing field isn't leveled for Black creatives. He says they often don't receive the credit for their original work.
We film like 10 videos a day.
Because Black creatives did not have that knowledge to, you know, especially when it comes to standard business. Because from where I'm coming from, we didn't teach us business in school. Our families did not own businesses.
He says breaking barriers comes with becoming more knowledgeable about your craft.
No matter what direction our lives take us, we are just bold.
I would implore artists to not ever be satisfied. Like if you want to be great.
So we're not that far removed from being oppressed, and we still here, we are still winning. And I think that our success in today's America is a testament for our talent.
Right after the break, the history of the Black vote and the ongoing movement to empower people to have their voices heard.
Voices for Equality, Black History Month, part of 11 Alive's year-round Voices for Equality series, brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Georgia Power. Make history.
Welcome back to 11 Alive's Voices for Equality with our special report for Black History Month, Dream and Disrupt, Black Atlanta's Bold Movement. I'm your host, Naima Abdullahi. For the next part of this journey, we're talking about the history of the Black vote. The passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 outlawed any racial discrimination at the polls. Here in Atlanta, that ended decades of voter suppression tactics aimed at Black voters. While the civil rights leaders of the 60s fought for the legislation, there's another fight, pushing Black voters today to exercise their right to vote. 11 Alive's Faith Jesse brings us the story.
2 generations on a mission.
I would say that young voters just care about being heard.
Nearly 60 years ago, civil rights leader C.T. Vivian marched for the right to vote.
This courthouse does not belong to Sheriff Clark. This courthouse belongs to the people of Dallas County.
Today, Julius Thomas and Remington Rollet are continuing that mission.
Hi, guys.
Hey. What's going on?
Thank you so much for being here.
Through a grassroots organization called the People's Uprising.
For those who have never heard of the organization, what is the People's Uprising?
The People's Uprising is a social justice organization that was created in 2020 as a response from the George Floyd situation that happened.
No justice, no peace! A mission that grew into a major effort to get young people registered to vote.
You are registered to vote right now, make some noise!
This is Votelanta, a concert where your ticket to get in is your voter registration.
I think we calculated at our very first event ever close to 3,000 people who registered to vote for the first time ever.
This is a nonpartisan event. So you're not telling people how to vote. You're just saying it's important to vote.
We're not telling people who to vote, Democratic or Republican or Independent, but we just want you to exercise your vote.
In Georgia's last general election, there were a little over 2 million registered black voters. About half of them showed up to the polls, according to numbers from the Georgia Secretary of State's office. Voter registration efforts 6 decades ago are still part of Atlanta's identity today. C.T. Vivian's son, Al Vivian, keeping his father's legacy alive.
In 1877, the state of Georgia initiated its first massive voter suppression to stop African Americans from voting. 1965, when the Voting Rights Bill was signed into law, that was what changed everything. At the same time, you still had threats of intimidation, especially if you lived in rural areas. People would threaten you threaten your life. Employers would deny you, say they would take away your job if you voted.
A new generation dedicated to continue the mission, to encourage people to get out and vote.
We cannot afford to take the foot off the gas pedal and really continue to push the message and push the point to continue to drive change, because once we relax, all the things that we as young people want in our hearts, it may just go to the wayside. So we got to continue to apply that pressure and to speak up and speak out.
In the fight for voting rights, organizers had a strategic ally, Black women. Despite their invaluable contributions going back more than a century, Black women have largely been left out of the narrative. 11 Alive's Karis Belger is bringing their stories center stage and showing how Black women today are continuing the essential work they started.
Kendra Carter's office is full of reminders.
We are not an organization that runs on an electoral cycle. We are around 365 days a year.
And the work has a particular focus.
We build power for Black and brown communities here in Georgia, particularly focusing on the sweet spot of the age of 25 to 40.
Carter is the CEO of the New Georgia Project. Founded in 2013 by Stacey Abrams, the organization's mission is informing and empowering voters using a well-established blueprint.
When you talk about the right to vote, even the women's suffrage movement, Black women were not elevated.
In the late 19th and early 20th century in Georgia, women like Adela Hunt Logan found ways to disrupt the structures society set for them.
A daughter of a Black woman and a slave master. She was educated at Atlanta University here in Atlanta. They offered her a teaching job, and she decided to go to Tuskegee.
There, Logan joined the Women's Club, dedicated to improving the lives of Black women, including the right to vote. A challenging goal.
Even as they fought for the rights, human rights, white women discriminated against Black women who also were fighting.
But she persisted in the fight for women's equity, as did Lugenia Burns Hope.
She was a founding member of the National Association for National Association of Colored Women. That was a network of Black women's clubs around the country that came together to really galvanize their power in the fight for human rights, civil rights, and women's rights.
Work that proved hard, but laid a foundation for what's still being done today.
Hannah Gebrselassie, co-founder and executive director of Protect the Vote GA. It's so important that we build off of the previous movements and understand where all the gaps were and how we can close those gaps. Because even Black women organizers in the past are historically underrepresented, they're historically underpaid, and our organization wants to change that.
Like Hope and Logan, Hannah Gebrselassie and her co-founders are among countless Black women like Carter, finding new ways to engage voters in hopes of an equitable future.
For us, it's another election year that we are ready to step up to the plate, ensure that our communities have the resources that they need.
Still to come, what is the journey of being a Black-owned business in the Black Mecca, and is the playing field leveled? Next, you'll hear from a business owner pushing the boundaries to set new standards. Breaking barriers in the business world can take generations to overcome. Oftentimes, it's because of lack of funding, education, or collaboration, and that's why support is so crucial. 11 Alive's Joe Ripley introduces us to one business owner using his connections to go into business for himself and give back to others.
So after we're done,
you can ask Isaiah Smith.
Beer has roots in Africa.
Or look at his t-shirt. Beer is Black history. But historically, the beer industry hasn't looked like him.
Less than 1% of breweries in operation right now are black owned. And so there was a huge gap in the market specifically for the type of beer that we were making, leveraging ingredients that spoke closer to our palate.
Smith and his family started Our Culture brewing with connection to the land in mind.
There's a lot of synergy in grabbing the freshest raw materials from the great stewards of the land and then really just taking that and honoring that into the beer that we produce.
We have goats and chicken out here.
One of those stewards, Christina Hilton. She owns Iron Lion Farm in Oconee County. Over 60 acres, once used for sugarcane, now used by Hilton and her husband to grow produce and tend to livestock, patiently adapting to the different seasons of life. Their work connects them to Black history, a nod to the past, a need for the here and now, and a notion to leave a legacy.
I'm always mindful of that and the labor and the sweat and tears and the sacrifices.
The landscape for Black business owners looks a lot more promising moving forward from Miguel Lloyd's viewpoint with the Atlanta Black Chambers. The group helps link more than 1,000 businesses across 30-plus counties. Lloyd says those connections can break barriers for minority business owners like access to funds, training, and collaboration.
Under 3% of contracts are going to African-American businesses in a community that's well over 40% African-American. We have to try to figure out how to change that.
Back at the brewery, Fenwick Broyard III emphasizes diversity and brings new perspective to Creature Comforts, one of the top 40 beer makers in the nation.
What if we created an opportunity for somebody to come join our staff, do what they do while we teach them how to do what they want to do? Then we're opening up pathways for equity to be achieved in the industry.
On top of the brew deck here.
That's exactly how Isaiah Smith got his start in the beer industry at Creature, connection. And as much as beer is a part of Black history, Smith wants beer and business to be a bigger part of the future.
I think it's vital that we collectivize and band together and assist one another so that we can build infrastructure so the people coming behind us don't have to struggle as hard as we did to get to where we're at.
A recent study highlights the continuing disparity in wealth between white families and Black people in the city of Atlanta. It shows Black families have 3 times less wealth than white families. 11 Alive's Karis Belger spoke with community advocates about why this gap still exists and what's being done to address it.
Atlanta is thought of as a mecca where any Black person can succeed.
I was a former classroom teacher.
Bijane Kareem has learned that's not the case.
It's been documented, particularly here in Atlanta, that there is a racial wealth gap that also lends itself into the school system as well.
This former educator literally wrote the book to help close the gap.
And this shows teachers how they don't have to spend out of their pocket to get the resources that they need for their classroom in 12 quick steps.
And now Kareem uses that book to teach others.
I'm also seeing small groups working together, practicing writing parts of a grant that they're going to apply for.
Grants to set classrooms up for success, leveling the playing field so students can have a better financial future.
Providing children with spaces that have high quality resources, innovative learning, helps to close that wealth equity gap.
A gap directly impacting Atlanta's Black community. A recent study from the Atlanta Wealth Building Initiative found white families in Atlanta have 3 times more wealth than Black families, a problem Lauren Priest wants to solve.
I think Atlanta faces the same problems that the rest of the country does. It goes from everything from historical context like redlining and really intentional and legal discrimination to current context, continued housing discrimination.
Priest understands.
As a single parent, I wish that I would have had this type of resource when I was living in poverty.
And now, through the charity she works for, she gives people the resources she dreamed of. People like Kareem.
I'm going down memory lane and looking through my phone.
Who got $5,000 to keep helping teachers.
It's a victory, it's a win, and we're all cheering.
So Kareem can teach tools to fund brighter futures.
From the importance of Black-owned businesses to being about business, next up we'll bring you a story of an unsung hero for civil rights still making a difference after his decades-long commitment to Black empowerment. As we commemorate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy during Black History Month, we want to highlight an unsung hero who was inspired by Dr. King and organized countless marches alongside Atlanta legends such as civil rights icon Hosea Williams. Here is my interview with Reverend Eric Terrell, Vice President of the National Action Network and a proud member of the DeKalb chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization co-founded by Dr. King.
Ain't gonna let nobody.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on marching, keep on talking.
Reverend Eric Terrell has a sharp memory, but has lost count of how many protests he's organized over the decades.
Oh my God.
More than 100.
More than 100.
More than 100 miles walked.
Yes, ma'am.
His close friends, all foot soldiers of the movement, say he's an unsung hero for civil rights.
Heavenly Father, we come to you giving you all the praises because you are so worthy.
Did you bring the bullhorn? You didn't bring the bullhorn.
Each of them sees themselves as a reflection of Dr. King. Reverend Nathan Knight says he sold him a newspaper at a young age.
I met Dr. King at age 11. He reached in his pocket, took out a quarter, and gave me the quarter to him to keep the tip. And that's when we bonded.
He stands tall next to the portraits that he's painted, including one that's of his closest friend, Reverend Terrell.
He's very passionate, he's sincere, he's dependable when it comes down to us doing things that need to be done.
When you were told because of the color of your skin you can't do this, like what was your response to things like that?
Be ready to go to jail.
Every time?
Every time.
There is a lot to reflect on with civil rights icon John Lewis. In the summer of 2020, I ran into Reverend Terrell while covering Congressman John Lewis's funeral. He used that moment to encourage the young generation to take their pain to the polls. Sharing that colorful message while wearing the iconic blue overalls and the red shirt, a trademark look of civil rights legend Hosea Williams. The red shirts for
the blood is in the streets of America.
And the blue overalls?
It's for the tears of the foot soldiers.
The spirit of the movement often crosses Reverend Terrell's mind.
The day that we lost Dr. King, it was a big hurt, like a big letdown, because he was a leader.
A leader.
A great man that was among us.
What does MLK Day mean to you?
Work.
Work and continued work.
And continue to work.
Tell me about that.
Well, when I say continue to work, I mean to work among your people and lead them in the right way. Because if we don't put our young people on the right track, they're going to lose sight.
Reverend Terrell is hopeful that this young generation will rise to leadership positions, not just in job titles, but in action.
Somebody got to take this road, take the torch and run with it. Somebody got to do it. And that's what I always believe. And that's something the young people don't understand right now.
When you think about your legacy, what do you want your legacy to stand for in the test of time?
Fight for what you want. Fight for what you believe.
I can't breathe!
Be willing to stand. Don't let nothing turn you back.
Coming up after the break, a heartfelt message from the voices we interviewed in this series as they answer important questions about Black identity and excellence.
Voices for Equality, Black History Month, part of 11 Alive's year-round Voices for Equality series, brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Georgia Power. Make history.
Celebrating Black History Month means amplifying Black voices, inspiring Black creativity, and promoting voices for equality. We asked the people we interviewed for this special series, Dream and Disrupt, to fill in the blank for 2 sentences. I am and Black is. Their responses are the reason why we decided to bring you this 1-hour special. It shows Black Atlanta's bold movement through the lens of those making a difference in our community.
Black is everything.
Black is culture and creativity.
Black is timeless.
Black is all things excellent.
Black is gold.
Black is strong.
Black is life.
Black is powerful.
Black is my identity. Black is how I am every day.
Black is excellence.
Black is eternal richness and connection to the spirit.
Black is beautiful.
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 Beautiful. Beautiful. That's it. No, just beautiful.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Voices for Equality. Dream and disrupt Black Atlanta's bold movement. We want to remind you to continue making Atlanta the beloved community Dr. King envisioned. Change is never convenient, it's not always comfortable, but it's always necessary. We'll see you next time.
I am a village builder.
I am a superhero.
I am a dog mom.
I am a mental health awareness advocate.
I am blessed to be a blessing to others.
I am purpose-driven.
I am a scholar activist.
I am a talented and smart Black man that is pushing the barriers of what they believe that I should be doing as a Black man.
I am the dream. I am the dream fulfilled.
I am a part of the evolution.
I'm an activist and a community organizer.
I'm a civil rights attorney and a social justice activist.
And I am an agent of change.